Chapter 30. Tom is again a hero. After 2 more days had gone by, most of the people of the village had given up on finding the 2 children. Both Mrs. Thatcher and Aunt Polly were in terrible condition and did nothing but cry day and night. But one night, at around 3 o'clock, the church bells started ringing. Everyone quickly dressed and met in the street. Down by the river, shouting could be heard.
"The children are found!"
Aunt Polly couldn't believe her ears. The whole village gathered to hear Tom tell his story.
"So I walked as far as the string could go, trying every path I could find, but every time I came to a wall. But at the end of the 4th path, just as I was about to try another direction, I saw a light far away in the distance. So I put the string down and ran to it. When I got there, I found a hole in the cave, and when I put my head through it, I found that I was outside again. And just below me was the river. When I went back to get Becky, she thought I was joking and wanted me to leave her alone to die. But I kept pulling at her, and eventually she got up and followed me out."
When the children ran down to the river, there was a boat passing by, so they shouted.
"The men told us we were 5 miles away from the cave entrance. We couldn't believe how far we had walked."
It took 3 days of rest for the children to return to their normal health. When Tom found out about Huckleberry's illness, he went to see him over at Mrs. Douglas's home. There, he was told not to mention his adventure to Huckleberry, because he was still too weak to be excited. Old Man Jones told Tom that Indian Joe's partner had been found dead in the river. He probably hadn't been a good swimmer and drowned while trying to run away. Tom visited Becky Thatcher's home 2 weeks later and was told by her father that the entrance to that cave was now completely covered, so that no one would ever be able to explore it again. Tom's eyes suddenly widened and he shouted,
"But, sir, Indian Joe is inside!"
Chapter 31. Back to the cave. The judge immediately had people working to open the iron door he had placed over the cave entrance. When they were finally successful in opening it, they found Indian Joe lying on the ground just inside, dead. Tom felt a little sad to see him that way, but at the same time, he was no longer afraid. The following morning, Tom and Huck met each other to talk. Huck told Tom about what happened with Indian Joe and his partner after he'd followed them up Cardiff Hill.
"And I heard gunfire, and I heard the next day from Old Man Jones that the 2 men had gotten away. Now we'll never find that money. I think I know where it is, Huck. It must be in the cave." "Huck,"
Tom said,
"that money was never in number 2. It's in the cave." "Are you sure?" "Pretty sure. Why don't we go and look? Do you have enough strength now?" "If it's too deep inside, I won't be able to go with you." "Don't worry. I know a secret way to get there. We'll go through the hole I used to escape from the cave." "Can we go now, Tom?" "Okay, let's just get a little bit of food, some tobacco, some string, and a couple of lights, and we'll be ready."
So, at noon, they took the boat of a friend downriver to the place where Tom had exited the cave. Tom went in first, after tying a string to a rock outside the cave. Coming to the little pool where he and Becky had waited without hope, Tom told Huckleberry how frightening it had been to be so lost. When they found the hole in the floor where Tom had seen Indian Joe, they shone their lights down inside and found a hill leading to another rock below.
"Okay, now look over there on that large rock. What do you see?" "Hey, a cross. Remember what we heard them say? The number 2 place was under the cross. I'm pretty frightened, Tom. Maybe we should just leave. What? And leave the money? Tom, Indian Joe's spirit must be down here. But Huck, he died 5 miles away from this spot, near the entrance. But you know what spirits do. They always guard their treasure.
Tom thought for a moment.
Wait a minute, Huck. He was a bad man. His spirit wouldn't go near a cross. Hey, you're right.
Huck agreed.
Okay, let's go and get that money, Tom.
When they reached the bottom of the hill, they found the place where Indian Joe had been sleeping. There was not money to be seen, however. But then Tom took out his knife and went behind the rock with the cross on it, and not long after he started digging, his knife struck wood.
Hey, Huck, did you hear that noise?
Together they dug further until they were able to easily pull the box from the ground.
Look there, under the box, Tom.
There were 2 guns.
You know what this means, Tom. It means we're wealthy now. I always knew we'd find this money. And here it is. It's all ours.
They emptied the box and put everything in 2 bags and started walking back toward the exit.
What about the guns, Tom? We can get those later. I'm too hungry to worry about that now.
When they returned to the outside again, they got out their food and ate. And when they finished eating, Huckleberry took some tobacco from his pocket for an after-dinner smoke.
Huck,
said Tom,
we'll take the money to Mrs. Douglas's house. I know a place near there to put it tonight. Tomorrow morning, we can count it and divide it, and then we can find a place in the forest where it will be safe. You wait here now and watch it. I'm going to get Benny Taylor's little wagon.
Within minutes, Tom returned, pulling the wagon behind him. As they were passing Mr. Jones's home, he came out the door yelling,
Who's there? It's just Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, sir. You boys come with me now. Everyone's been waiting for you. I'll take that wagon. You don't have to pull it yourself. It looks really heavy. What's in it? I'm sure it's filled with dirt or something of no value. Now, let's move a little faster. You've got people waiting. People waiting, sir?
The boys asked.
You'll find out soon.
They walked to Mrs. Douglas's house and entered the front door. Inside were all of their closest friends, Aunt Polly, Sid and Mary, the Thatchers, and the Harpers. They were all wearing their best clothing, while Tom and Huckleberry had dirt all over their clothes and faces. Aunt Polly seemed to be embarrassed by the boys' appearance. Noticing this, Mrs. Douglas took the boys into the bathroom and gave them some new clothing to put on after they'd washed up. "Come and join us at the dinner table when you're all finished," she said, shutting the door behind her. Chapter 32. A Dinner Full of Surprises. Huck ran to the bathroom window and raised it, saying,
"Here, Tom, we can escape through here." "Why?" "I don't like being around people, Tom, you know that." "Don't worry about it, Huck. They've made a nice dinner for us. It'd be terrible for us to disappear again."
Then Sid came into the bathroom.
"So, tell us, Sid, why are all of these people here?" "Oh, Old Man Jones says that he has surprising news for everyone. But actually, we all know what he's going to say. It'll be no surprise at all." "Well, we don't know. What is it?"
asked Tom.
He thinks that Mrs. Douglas doesn't know about Huck following those two men that night. So he's going to tell the story at dinner, but she already knew. Well, I can imagine who told her. You. You've never been able to keep a secret since the day you were born. Now, get out of here. You've ruined the excitement for everyone tonight.
A little while later, Tom and Huck joined everyone at the dinner table. When everyone had finished eating, Mr. Jones rose to say something. He told the story about Huck, and everyone pretended to be surprised. Mrs. Douglas couldn't thank Huckleberry enough. This, of course, made him terribly embarrassed. She continued by saying that from now on, since Huckleberry didn't have a family, she would take care of him. He could live with her, and after he had finished school, she would give him money so that he could go into business for himself. Hearing this, Tom said,
Oh, don't worry about Huck. He's a wealthy man now.
Everyone at the table looked confused.
Really? Huck is rich now. I can prove it. Just wait here and I'll be back.
Then Tom went running out the door. Aunt Polly's face turned red with embarrassment again. What is that boy doing now? She thought to herself. When Tom came back in, he was carrying the two heavy bags of money. He put them on the table and opened them, saying,
See, I told you he was rich, and so am I.
The room was completely silent for a whole minute as everyone stared at the money, not believing what they were seeing. Then the judge spoke.
Tom, can you tell us where you got all of this money?
So Tom told them the whole story, and afterward they all counted the gold and silver together. It came to almost $13,000. Even though there was a room full of adults, none of them, not even the judge, could say they had ever seen that much money at one time before. Chapter 33. Tom Sawyer's Club. For a long time after that, people were talking about Tom and Huck's money. Now, everyone wanted to look for hidden treasure, and they all came to Tom and Huck for advice. Everywhere around the village, they looked under old houses and under the shadows of trees. Wherever Tom and Huck suggested there might be money, they looked. After putting their money in the bank, both boys had enough money to pay for their schooling, food, and clothing for many years to come. Tom was more popular than ever in the village. And ever since the day Judge Thatcher met Tom in Sunday school, his respect for him had become greater and greater. He was proud of him for having saved his daughter. He believed that Tom would one day become a truly great man. But for Huck Finn, life had become difficult. He was terribly sad because Mrs. Douglas had made him move in with her, and ever since then he had been eating well, dressing well, and was going to school and to church. For 3 weeks he had to live like this, but then he decided that he'd had enough, and he ran away. The whole village looked for him. Many feared that he drowned in the river, but Tom knew where he was. He got up early one morning and went to their favorite hiding place in the old empty building. Huck was sitting inside, smoking. His clothes were torn, and his face and hair were covered in dirt.
Huck, you really ought to go back to Mrs. Douglas's home. Please, Tom, don't mention it. It was horrible living that way. Getting up early, washing myself every single day, both morning and night. I had to sleep in a bed. she made me wear those nice clothes that were just too uncomfortable for me. And the worst thing of all was having to wear shoes on Sunday for church. But, Huck, that's how everyone lives these days. Well, Tom, I'm not like everyone else. I like to smoke, but she won't let me. I don't like to pray, but she makes me do it. I don't like to go to school, and what does she do? She makes me go. I like my life the way it is now. And you know what? You can have all of my money, Tom. I don't want it. The more money I have, the sadder I become. Just occasionally give me a few cents so that I can buy some bread or something. Could you just go and tell Mrs. Douglas all this so she won't worry about me any more? Now, Huck, she's not going to accept that. I'm sure that if you just be patient and try living with her a little longer, you'll start to like that kind of life. Oh, sure. I'd love it about as much as I'd love to fall out of a tree and break my neck. No way, Tom. I like being poor, and that's the way I'm going to stay. Besides, we can't enjoy ourselves like we did before. Just because you have money and a good home doesn't mean we can't play like we used to. I hadn't mentioned this to you yet, but I might as well now. I'm starting a boys' club, but only people who go to school and wear nice clothes can join. Really? That's not a very nice thing to say to me. Nice or not nice, Huck, if you want to join Tom Sawyer's Club, you're going to have to live your life differently. I want you to join, but I can't let you if you live this way.
Huck thought about it for a moment and then said,
Okay, you've got me. I'll go back to Mrs. Douglas's and try again, but only if you let me join your club. No problem, Huck. Now, let's go. We'll talk with Mrs. Douglas when we get back and see if she can be a little less difficult with you. Thanks, Tom. So when's the first club meeting? And what will we do there? Maybe we'll meet tonight. I think we should all agree to take care of each other when one of us needs to be taken care of, and to fight, maybe even kill, anyone who tries to hurt one of our club members. That sounds good, Tom. And we'll all sign the agreement with our blood in this old empty building. Wow, Tom, it sounds like our life is going to be even more exciting than it has ever been. Who cares about being a pirate when you can be a member of Tom Sawyer's Club? We'll be famous and everyone in the village will want to join.
In conclusion, and now this story must end, because this has been a story about a boy, and to tell it any further would mean to have to tell the story of a man. Almost everyone you've read about here is still living happily in that village on the Mississippi River today. It's possible that there may be more to tell you in the future. So, it would be best to stop here for now.